Today I'm going to tell you really quickly why watching content like this is keeping you small. Maybe not small, that's a bit harsh. It's not helping. It's not the solution to the problems that you have, even though it might feel like this is what you've been missing all along. And the reason that this isn't helping, the reason that this sort of content isn't the solution is that fundamentally it gets you to think about the wrong things. It gets you to hyperfixate and focus on exercise selection, minor changes in technique, and very complicated, complex exercise setups. And I'm not suggesting that certain tricep exercises aren't marginally better for building your triceps, but if all you had was a weighted vest and if all you could do was close grip push-ups, so long as you got a decent bend in the elbow and you consistently trained that exercise very close to or to failure and you did it for long enough, you would get bigger, stronger triceps. And that's the point I'm trying to make. I understand why content like this is appealing. It's nice to think that the reason why you're not seeing the progress that you want is because you haven't found this one magical exercise, this greatest of all time tricep setup. And so that means that all you need to do is drag this one exercise that you never knew about before, drop it into your workout plan, and hey presto, you're going to end up with massive jacked triceps. In the same way that it's easy to fall into the marketing traps around supplements. Take these supplements and you'll double your muscle growth and get stronger. Set up your diet this way, do intermittent fasting and you'll get shredded much quicker. There are all sorts of hacks and shortcuts that are marketed to us that we instinctively want to buy into because the solution is fast and the solution is simple, and there's nothing else that we need to fundamentally change that we're doing on a daily basis. We just add this to our routine, we add these tablets to our supplements, we track our calories a certain way, and done. So I understand why this stuff is appealing. It's marketing. People are preying on your vulnerabilities. They're preying on the idea that you're obviously going to look for the fastest way to achieve something. But like I said, it gets you to focus on the wrong thing. Your exercise selection, minor changes in technique, whether you use a cable or free weights, these sort of questions are perfectly fine to entertain if you're a bit of a gym nerd and you like thinking about it and that's your cup of tea. In the same way that I spend far too much time nitpicking D&D rules and worrying about which shade of rusty brass I'm going to use on my World Eater's gold trim. But for you and I, when it comes to building triceps, these sorts of things don't really matter. What does matter is your consistency, your intensity, your frequency, and your ability to be patient. So let's break down those four things. Consistency comes before anything else. You could be the hardest trainer in the gym, but if you only show up to the gym every 2 or 3 weeks, it's not really going to amount to much. You can have the best exercise technique, you can have the best supplements, you can have the perfect diet, but if you don't show up consistently, who cares anyway? So consistency is the first step in my mind. You need to be showing up on a regular basis. And so if you can string together a few good weeks or a few good months, that's fine. But the reality is you need to be stringing together a few good years before you're going to see any significant progress. Now, some of this can be down to a lack of direction. You don't have a training program, you don't have a set structure, and so there's no real impetus for you to get to the gym on certain days or use certain bits of kit. You kind of wing it and make it up as you go along. You don't notice any significant progress because you're not tracking your numbers, and so you end up drifting off, or you don't have a plan in the first place. Accountability comes into it as well. And look, accountability can be working with a coach who's going to keep you accountable, but it can just be having a training partner, committing to doing stuff with friends, with family. But again, having a program, having some direction, and the accountability to make sure you show up and continue doing it is going to solve your consistency problems most of the time. Training intensity is part 2, because at some point, how you're performing reps in the gym matters just as much as showing up to the gym itself. If you don't turn up to the gym frequently, if you don't turn up to your workouts frequently, you can't do tough stuff. But if you're not doing tough stuff, then eventually you're not going to see any progress anyway. So eventually these two go hand in hand. Intensity, essentially, when it comes to muscle building, simply means that you are taking your working sets to a point where you're very close to or to the point of failure. You can't do any more reps no matter how hard you try. So have a bit of a self-reflecting moment. Think about how tough you're genuinely training. Are you genuinely taking all of your working sets to the point where you can barely do another repetition? Not are you taking it to the point where your muscles ache, where your form starts breaking down a little bit, where it gets uncomfortable, where you're sweating, where you're out of breath, but genuinely where no matter how hard you try, you can't lock out that last rep. Because I will very often see people and work with people who believe they've gone to failure, but I know, because I've been doing this for 2 decades, and I can see that they've probably got a couple more reps in the tank. And if you are consistently sandbagging your sets or undershooting your intensity, that is going to have a bigger impact than what exercise you're doing anyway. The person who consistently works hard will always make more progress than the person who follows a a perfect plan with optimized exercise selection, but doesn't show up consistently or doesn't train with any real intensity consistently enough. Third thing is training frequency, and I think this is slightly less important, but generally speaking, it's going to be far more impactful to train a muscle group twice a week than it is once. And a simple fix for this is just to drop the arm day that you're doing, take the exercise you're doing, split them in half, and put them on different days. So if you do close grip bench press for your triceps, followed by tricep pushdowns and an overhead tricep extension, then take 2 of those exercises, put them on one day of the week, take the other one of those exercises and put them on the other day of the week. Having 6 or 7 days rest between working a muscle group is perfectly fine if that's what you need to do, if that's all you can do. But if you can find a way to train those muscles more frequently, that's going to be beneficial. A really simple way to do this with triceps, for instance, is to have a kettlebell at home or a band or even just like a weighted vest. And once a week, you can do some kettlebell tricep extensions or some tricep band pushdowns or some close grip push-ups, all from the comfort of your home. It's what I do. One day a week, I do 20 to 30 minutes of arm training in the garage or in the lounge with a couple of bits of kit, because that way I double my training frequency. I create a stimulus for those muscles to grow and to get stronger twice a week rather than once a week, but I don't have to commit to another gym session. So having bits of kit at home is super handy for that reason. Like my grip training while we're here, my grip training or my grip strength skyrocketed when I got some grip trainers and I just kept them in the office. 3 times a week, I will use these. One day a week, I'll go heavy, one day a week, I'll go light, and one day a week, I'll go moderate and sort of like middle-ish with the repetitions. It takes me 5 to 10 minutes. I don't have to go anywhere, and my training frequency for my grip work skyrocketed, and it's had a positive impact upon my chin-ups, my rows, my deadlifts, the size and shape of my hands and forearms, I guess. So like training frequency does matter. It's not as important as consistency or intensity, but if you can find a way to do that, that's going to have a far bigger impact than doing a specific tricep exercise. And fourth and finally is patience. And this is a really tough one and maybe is the toughest part of building muscle, because building muscle is a painfully slow process. Yes, there are things that you can take that are going to speed that up, but I recommend that you do not consider taking those and that you do not take those for obvious health risks. Like you don't need them. But I do understand the desire and the temptation to take them. I've been very close to taking it myself, but that's probably a story for another time. Patience is key. I remember the first couple of years I went to the gym, I would train my arms 3 days a week. In fact, my workout routine was every now and again I'd train my legs. I had like really bad knee pain at the time from playing too much basketball in Doc Martens at school. So I train my legs infrequently here and there when my knees weren't in agony. And then I'd do some bench press. And then 3 times a week, I would do a load of shrugs because I wanted big traps. And I do a load of arm work because I wanted big arms. And I don't recommend following that program. What I was actually going to say is, although I definitely don't recommend following that particular program, that was a bad program. But I do remember being a bit disappointed most mornings when I would look in the mirror and my arms weren't massive and jacked because that's what I wanted. But I learned very quickly that I had to focus on the process and not the outcome. The process is you show up to the gym, you train hard, you train frequently. Those are the 3 things I said. Yeah, you show up consistently, you train with good intensity, you train frequently, and then you just allow biology and nature to take its course over the long run. If you focus on the outcome, i.e. you want big arms, you're going to be disappointed, infuriated, and you're more likely to quit. If you can focus on the process, if you can buy into the process and judge your efforts on that, you will probably get there in the end. So I get that patience is tricky. Building muscle is painfully slow. And this brings us back to that first point, because I think that's why content like this does well, because we're sold this idea that, hey, all I have to do is this new exercise. All I have to do is add in this specific supplement, follow this specific program, do this particular diet routine, and it will solve my problem. Your problem in this video is you want bigger muscles, and your muscles aren't getting bigger at the rate that you would like, and you're probably feeling a bit disappointed and infuriated, and you're doing all the hard work, and so you see this content, and there we go. Problem solved. I just need this exercise. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter. Like, people get big arms doing dips and close grip push-ups. People get big arms using cables. People get big arms using bands. People get big arms using all sorts of exercises. Fundamentally, what all of those people will have in common is that they show up consistently. They train really, really fucking hard. They train more than once a week, and they've had the patience to show up for years and most likely decades. Like, unless someone is a genetic freak, or unless they're on some performance enhancing drugs that they shouldn't be on, that's it. That is the story. You need a program for some direction. You need to assess your training intensity. You need to find a way to train a particular muscle group more than once a week, ideally, if you want it to grow. And you probably need some accountability. Once you've got those 4 things in place, you need to find a way to be patient. Just like you are with all sorts of things. Like we can be patient with our careers, we can be patient with our hobbies, we can be patient with all sorts of things. You need to be patient with your body. Like, there are some things that can change very rapidly. You can lose weight very quickly, but building strength, building muscle, improving your fitness, building, increasing your VO2 max, all those sorts of things, they take a long time. And if you're watching other people who are further along than you, then it's almost guaranteed that they've just been training harder for longer, and you need to start today, and you need to start making that progress. I'm going to finish the video there. That's it. Those are the solutions: consistency, intensity, frequency, and patience. I can't get this finger up without lifting this one. And to do those things, you need a good program that's give you direction. You need some accountability. You need to genuinely and honestly assess your training efforts, and, well, the patience thing you're going to have to solve.